Coming up on All About Android, me, Jason Howell. We got Wen Twit Dao. We've got Florence Ion. We've got Michelle Rahman. It is a packed house, and we got a lot to talk about. I'd say 75-80% of it courtesy of Michelle, actually. He's been really, really busy. He tells us some of the hidden features that you can find in Android 13 QPR1 if you know how to search through the source code, and what's coming to QPR2, at least some of the clues found in the beta there. We talk about the Xiaomi 13 and 13 Pro and how, in many ways, it's very similar to the iQOO 11 and 11 Pro, kind of a glimpse into next year's flagship devices. The Passkey revolution arrives with Chrome on Android, and strangely, but I think importantly, the importance of good sleeping health, plus your feedback and a whole lot more next on All About Android.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is All About Android, episode 608, recorded Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. Battery wars are real. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Collide. Collide is an endpoint security solution that gives IT teams a single dashboard for all devices, regardless of their operating system. Visit collide.com/AAA to learn more and activate a free 14-day trial today. No credit card required. And by Code Comments, an original podcast from Red Hat that lets you listen in on two experienced technologists as they describe their building process and what they've learned from their experiences. Search for Code Comments in your podcast player. And by IT Pro from ACI Learning. IT Pro TV is now IT Pro from ACI Learning. If you're looking to break into the world of IT, or if your IT team needs to level up, well, get the introduction you need with IT Pro. Check out an IT Pro business plan by visiting itpro.tv/allaboutandroid today. Hello and welcome to All About Android, your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Wen Twit Dao.
And I'm Florence Ion.
And there we go.
And I'm Michelle Rahman.
Because last time you were on, Michelle, it got all confusing. It was like, wait a minute, do I introduce Michelle? Does Michelle introduce himself? So you're part of the mix. It's great to see you all. The only one missing right now is Ron.
I know.
Unfortunately.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be like
things to talk about.
We don't talk about Ron.
No, we could talk about Ron. We could talk about the fact that if the stars would have aligned appropriately. See, I said I would find a way to organically
it didn't
bring
take
this
very
into
long.
the show. So Ron this weekend did something very fun. I'm going to tell his story for him. I'm sure he appreciates me doing this.
Sure.
But he took his sister around to the 90210 locations that are both most important to their heart. And Ron had originally extended an invitation. He said, I'm coming to do this with my sister. Oh my God, it would be so awesome if you could like come down to LA and do this. And folks, it didn't happen because I ended up going to Vancouver, which is Jason Priestley's hometown.
All right, at least whatever you had going on had something remotely to do with 90210. That's very on brand.
And I had texted this to Ron. I said, listen, it's not like I'm going against us. At least I'm like on a mission, you know, in a related part of the fandom.
But was that the reason that you went to Vancouver? I mean, you don't have to say the reason, but was that part of it? Like, I'm going to Vancouver because
I've always
Jason
been
Priestley.
Well, first of all, I like needed to go away. Second of all, very cheap to fly there.
Oh, okay.
In the middle of winter from SFO.
Yeah.
It's so cheap that the first flight I was supposed to fly out on got canceled. Because they were like, we'll just rebook you all.
There's only 5 of you on this flight. We'll go ahead and put you over here tomorrow.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
But it was also because Vancouver is considered the Hollywood of the North. That's where a lot of Lifetime and Hallmark movies are filmed. You know, it's...
Yeah, I hear that all the
Galactica
time.
was filmed there.
All the people that I talk to.
Supernatural was filmed there. You know, Highlander, the TV series, was filmed there.
Oh, okay. X-Files was too, right?
Or did you just
X-Files, a couple of
X-Files,
Netflix.
that was top notch.
Yep, X-Files is
Just a
still in there. A
long time
couple
ago.
of Netflix movies.
I tried.
Hey, X-Files was it there for quite a while. That's right. I forgot. It was shot in Vancouver.
Oh, wait, don't forget about all those really top tier DC TV shows from about 10 or 15 years ago.
Supergirl.
Okay, we don't want to forget about those. That you're right, Burke.
See?
Thank you for reminding us. Well, welcome back from Vancouver, and and we were also talking before the show. Michelle and Flo haven't been on since Flo, you were part of the kind of the permanent weekly rotation. So it's good to get you both back on the episode along with Win and I.
Yes, I'm always creeping on Michelle's tweets and seeing what you're posting, Michelle, and I'm like, what are they doing to the Pixel launcher now?
Plenty of good things. I think people were pretty positive with everything. Although I was surprised you were kind of like, "Oh, please don't change anything now."
It's listen, I'm here to have you convince me. Honestly, I want to hear it from you.
All right. Well, we've got a lot in this show, not only to talk about, but we've got a lot that Michelle has tweeted out over the past week. So, Michelle, you've been very busy, so it's a perfect week to have you on. Let's dive right in because I hear Burke has an amazing news bumper to play right now. Let's go.
First of all, that would be a misquote, Jason. But their hidden features were revealed about me. Lots of sarcasm.
Wish
All right.
Juan was here.
I'm going to take it easy on you, Burke, and say
Thank
good
you,
job.
Victor.
Burke's been through a lot the last hour, okay? We were very delayed from technical issues. So, Burke, you get a pass tonight. No
I'm
ribbing
not letting
from yours
Victor
truly.
live that one down.
Hey, let's start with you, Michelle. Actually, you've got this whole top news block because not only did you dive deep into Android 13 QPR1 and the source code underlying that, and we can talk about the features of which I was kind of looking at what you uncovered there and in going through there, and there's a lot on the horizon, but you also spent a bunch of time looking at Android 13 QPR2, the first beta, of what's coming out in the future. So let's start with QPR1, and dare I say, as I was putting together the list of what you were writing about, I was like, this is significant enough that a lot of if you had a number of these coupled together going into a next major release, you'd be like, oh, okay, there's some pretty cool stuff on the horizon. Yet these QPRs, this is what, a quarterly release? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so QPR stands for literally quarterly platform release. So as you all know, Android 13 was released in August, but just because that was the initial release, that doesn't mean they're not going to be stopping updating Android 13 further on. So about once a quarter after they release the first release, they release a QPR, which is basically a maintenance release. And so the first QPR was released in December. That coincided with the Pixel feature drop, and that was QPR1. And so the next QPR will be in another quarter from now, which would be QPR2, and that's set for release in March. So QPR1 is done. That's fully released. That's available to everyone that has a Pixel phone right now.
That was the OTA that I got on my phone.
That was the big OTA that we talked about in the show last week, right?
Yeah.
And so once Google released that to Pixel phones, for everyone, they also released the source code because that's what they usually do when they release the update for Pixels. Then they also publish the source code. And so I decided to take a look through the source code to see, what are some of the hidden things behind the scenes that they're working on for a future release. And
because you are a magician,
Jason,
by the way, I just want to specify, Michelle is an Android magician. That's why he does these things. I look at the work that you do on a regular basis, discovering these things and breaking out the source code and doing your detective work. I'm like, I don't know how this dude does this. It's so organized and it blows my mind. But anyways, continue.
I'm not going to lie. It took me probably 7 hours of looking through the entire, the comment history for what they released in QPR1, just looking through every single thing, what's interesting.
I'm not surprised
what's
to hear that.
Correlated and stuff. And it looks like there's a lot of features being worked on for Android 13. As you mentioned, like you're surprised. Like a lot of these things you might think, why aren't they like holding off until Android 14? Why are they releasing all this now? Well, coincidentally, as I'm sure you all have heard many, many, many times by now, Google's working on a Pixel tablet. They've already shown that off at the launch of the Pixel 7. And then they also are rumored to be working on a Pixel Foldable. I mean, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We pretty much know it's an open secret by now.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2 devices, and we pretty much expect those to launch with Android 13. But by the time they launch, they're not going to be running the same version of Android 13 that launched in August, right? They're going to be launching a much newer version of Android 13, probably maybe QPR2, QPR3, or maybe if they're delayed further, maybe Android 14. So that's why a lot of the stuff that you kind of see in this QPR1, QPR2 release, like it's not visible for Pixel phone users, but that's because a lot of this stuff is intended for the foldable or maybe the tablet. So the first major change that I discovered that I've been like tracking is this revival of the desktop mode feature. So back in Android 10, Google added this. So you have the launcher app on your phone, and they added this secondary launcher activity. So like when you launch it, it's like this very bare bones-esque desktop mode where all you have is an app drawer, and then you can just launch like a single window to it. Well, it's been kind of useless and only intended for developers for the longest time. But starting in QPR1, they've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to make it more usable. And then actually skipping ahead to QPR2, we start to see the fruits of that work come into play. So I shared a link in our chat that shows a screen recording of the desktop mode. So if you could put that on screen right now, that show off exactly what I'm talking about.
Where is that? Is that in our
It's in our Slack. Yeah, it's in our Slack. The screen recording of desktop mode.
Oh, okay. I see it here.
Right.
Allow me to copy this and put it in the doc for you, Burke. There we go. Oh, you already have it. Never mind. Burke has it.
Yeah, so if you could show... Yeah, so this is sorry, ignore that system UI is stopped recording. My thing is very buggy. But towards the end of the video, above the little freeform window, or like the Chrome window, you can see this title bar where there's a drag handle in the middle, there's a back button, and there's a close button. And this lets you easily... Yeah, you can see it there at the end. You can pause the video right there. And like you see this little drag handle, you can actually like move it around on screen. You can like tap it, and then it exposes additional buttons that let you maximize it, that lets you enter picture-in-picture mode. So like a lot of other things that you can do. Oh yeah, go ahead. You can play it right now. And see, that's the title bar in its unexpanded form. And you see I'm dragging it around on screen. And then once you tap the there, you see the buttons now? So like this is like the very early version of the desktop mode revamp that Google's been working on. And so like
that looks
I
pretty
think
nice.
It does, yeah. So I think the goal is maybe possibly with the Pixel tablet or the Pixel Fold, maybe those will support connecting to a secondary display, have display output, which you can see on like the Samsung Galaxy phones. A lot of them have DeX mode when you connect to a display. Pixel devices don't do that right now, but maybe a future Pixel will. And so once you connect to an external display, maybe you'll have a desktop mode running on that display, and then you'll have this much more desktop-friendly windowing experience where you can have multiple windows. You can have all these buttons to move things around, to maximize, etc. So like a lot of things that was kind of possible in previous versions of Android, but because Google didn't really pay much attention to it, it's kind of like been laid by the wayside. And like Samsung's been doing their own stuff, Motorola's been doing their own stuff, Lenovo their own stuff, but now finally Google is doing something, and hopefully this will like trickle down to all the other manufacturer builds. Yeah,
they're actually putting some time and attention into this. I remember a couple of years ago doing a show that I don't do anymore, Hands on Android. And I remember focusing an episode on Google's desktop mode. And there wasn't really it was neat. Like it was there, and you could kind of trick it into working and everything like that, but there wasn't a whole lot to it. This really seems like, okay, Google's like waking up, and they, like you said, they have a reason to now. It's like they have their own device, and this kind of renewed push to larger screen devices and everything. So it'll turn into something that's pretty exciting. That's like a major. I feel like that's a marquee feature of a new version of an OS, let alone like a quarterly update potentially. You know, if this comes out in QPR2 or whatever, that could be a little early, right? This could just be 14. Would you say?
True. I mean, yeah, they could.
This could be the pieces
holding
leading to 14. I don't know.
Right. I mean, to be fair, like in Android 12L, right? That was QPR2 for Android 12, and that introduced the taskbar in the first place.
That was a pretty significant update too. You're right.
That was a really significant update. Yeah. It's so much so that it actually got like its own marketing material, its own name, whereas normally it would just be Android 12 QPR2.
Right.
That's all it was in reality.
Interesting. Very cool. Oh, yeah.
That was only one of the features that I discovered.
Maybe
I spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah, for the sake of time, don't go through every single thing necessarily because we'll be here. I mean, because the work that you do is so exhaustive and I love it. But if you had to pull like a couple of the most notable, obviously that is one of them. What are a few others?
Well, I'm just going to run down them. I'm not going to show them on screen or anything. Another one is Google's working on letting you use the taskbar on a phone. So as you know, the taskbar is reserved for tablets and large screen devices. They're working on a way to let that be usable on a phone without, having it take up too much space.
That taskbar down at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
Kind of like a little launch area of some sort.
Right.
Which we kind of already have, though, in a home screen, right? Well, but it's different, I guess.
But it's only on the launcher. Like this taskbar would exist on every screen.
Interesting. Okay. Gosh.
And then there's in QPR2, I think there's some more interesting things that people would probably like to focus on. So one of the features that's existed a long time ago, like so old, I don't even remember how old it is, but the ringer volume and the notification volume used to be separated. Mm-hmm. And then back in like Android 4 point something, I don't remember, or how, maybe it was even older, they combined the two. Mm-hmm. And on a lot of OEM devices like Samsung devices, Asus devices, you can choose to separate them. Mm-hmm. But finally, in Android 13 QPR2, Google is testing a setting that lets you separate the ringer volume and the notification volume. And I know this is something a lot of people have asked for a very long time. Like, why can't we separate them? Why are they always combined, right? Like, I want a different volume for my ringtone and a different volume for when I get a notification.
Yeah,
well,
I totally
maybe
agree.
Soon you can.
Very nice. What's old is new again in the world of Android.
Yeah. The next thing I wanted to highlight is this new redesign of the taskbar. So I've been talking about the taskbar a lot. It kind of looks ugly and stale. One thing they're doing is this transient taskbar. Looks kind of like the tablet mode taskbar in Chrome OS. So if you can click on that link in our Slack, the transient taskbar, it's basically like this little this oval shaped pill at the bottom. And you can briefly see it there if you pause it in the beginning. Yeah, he's expanding it. You see it there? I'm like expanding it and unexpanding it. It's hidden right now, but if you play the video again, it'll. Yeah. There it is. You see, it's like a little oval shaped.
Yep.
And you can kind of see before it's like a gray bar at the bottom. Now it's this oval, follows Material U theming. It looks much nicer. And that coupled with another thing they're testing is letting you show this taskbar well in the recent overview will make this a lot more useful for end users of tablets and maybe eventually smartphones. And the last thing I wanted to highlight from QPR2 is something I know a lot of people have been asking for. It's the ability to enter something in search, like say you want to open the Chrome app. You just open the search bar, type CH. It'll autocomplete Chrome. You just hit enter, and you don't have to type the full text Chrome, or you don't have to tap the button. You just type CH, enter, it'll open Chrome. And that's something that used to be possible, I think, in Android 12, but they removed that for some reason.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds very familiar.
Yeah. They used to have it, then they removed it, now they're adding it back.
Okay.
But it's not enabled by default right now. But yeah, it's another one of those things that Google's working on that's a very nice quality of life feature. And yeah, there's so much more in QPR1 and QPR2 to talk about, but I take up the whole entire runtime of the show if I kept talking right now. So I think if you want to read, go ahead and follow the links or the blog post that'll be mentioned in the show description.
You did write about something that I just want to mention real quick here. Android's screensaver turning your tablet into a Nest Hub. So is this because I mean obviously from what we know, Google is creating, the Pixel tablet that they've announced. And as far as we know, that's going to dock into a dock and become like a Nest Hub device when it's in the dock, a regular tablet when you remove it. So what you're saying here, would you guess that this is isolated to Google's hardware, or that this might be something that any tablet that we could do with any tablet really if we wanted to? Or is there not enough to pull from that to make that?
So it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
So at the Made by Google launch event, while they did show off the Pixel tablet, they kind of shied away from showing anything that suggests you're going to be able to dock and undock it as like a Nest Hub. They don't want to call it a Nest Hub, right? But I think actually they did show off the dock. But they didn't show off like a lot of the new screensaver related features. But I've been tracking them since Android 13. They've been revamping the way screensavers work, and they've added a new feature called complications. So complications, like just like on smartwatches, or like these little bits of information that overlay on top of the screen, in this case a screensaver. So in Android 13, like the initial release, there were some complications for showing the date, the time, the weather, air quality info, and the cast information. So QPR1 adds some more new complications to the mix. There's one for Smart Space, which is the at-a-glance widget at the top of your Pixel home screen. The one that shows like your flight information, your whenever your Nest doorbell rings, it shows that info, like all sorts of information. It shows it. And then there's another complication for media controls, and there's another one for home controls. So like, it's clear what Google's doing with this screensaver revamp plus complications is that they want to make it so you can use an Android tablet as like a smart display. Yeah. And, it's kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We know you're doing this for the Pixel tablet, but it is true that this could be extended to other tablets running Android 13. Although the exact implementations, for who's going to be providing the weather information, who's going to be providing the weather, air quality, right?
It's not like you would do this and suddenly, boom, Nest Hub UI provided by Google suddenly appears on your Lenovo tablet or whatever.
Yeah. That's kind of how a lot of these features are on Android. They provide the hooks and like everything you need to implement something, but the actual implementation, like the proprietary bits, like the server side components, that's all something you got to do on your own as an OEM.
Sure. Well, cool. I mean, Flo, when both of you have kind of the larger screen foldable device, which I imagine some of these features might tap into, is there anything that you're hearing here that has you excited? I mean, I don't know how many of these features are going to automatically fold into the fold, no pun intended, but what do you think?
I definitely see a play for iPad OS with some of these changes that are coming to at least like the multitasking and the dockability of apps. I like the way that Samsung does it on the Fold, but I'd be really curious to see if Google can do it better. But I don't know.
Nope, none of us know. Not until Google gives us what they got.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're a big fan of the Fold, so Google has a lot to live up to as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, but the other thing is, like Michelle mentioned, like Samsung is doing their own thing on their devices versus what Google's going to try and do. And so, a feature like the ability to tack on an external display and in an easier manner, like that's totally an iPad OS move. But the difference between the iPad OS and whatever the Pixel could be is a chip. Is a chip called the M series.
Is but a chip. It's but a chip on Google's shoulder.
So it's just interesting to me what is going to transpire from this.
Yeah, there's a lot happening this next year when it comes to Google's movement into tablets. Back into tablets, let's say.
Well, and they have to prove to us.
Yeah.
Yes, they have a lot of proving to do because they keep chopping off what they deem is not making money for them as a company, and so hardware really needs to wow people and give people a reason to spend money on it.
Meanwhile, to a lot of people, Google is still proving itself with even the Pixel phone, let alone, the other hardware that they're doing. What do you think, Wynn, as far as, from a usability standpoint, do you like the direction that Google's going and what you're seeing here?
I do. I think so. I think what's interesting about the Fold is that even though it's nominally a large screen device, it's still the form factor that this is. I actually don't necessarily always need like something like a desktop mode or a windowed mode where, like, especially like, for example, like a regular size, like not regular size, but like a more traditional, what you think of a tablet, like an S8 or something. There's so much screen real estate, and the fact that just physically your hands are quite far apart. And they've actually done studies on, like I think. They had that one study where they showed kind of like a heat map of most, interacted like portions of the screen. And generally, like even on a big rectangular tablet, it's just like, 2-3 inches, 4 centimeters, if I guess you want to be metric, in the corners, right? And so I think what's interesting to me about desktop mode and trying these places that are more like, the taskbar, the desktop mode, is to try to make this space more wieldy. And that's always something I think as a dev, looking at a tablet and then trying to figure out how to port or make an experience that works well on tablet is just how to handle this space. And so a lot of what they've been telling us is like, hey, we've got, what's the one on the vertical bar, the vertical taskbar? They have recommendations on where to put, interaction elements, like again, in these kind of hot areas for like, comfortable touch and ergonomic touch. And so as a user, particularly me as a user on my Fold, I'm like, yeah, that's okay. I feel like windowed mode and desktop mode might be less interesting here. One UI already has like a version of the transient taskbar, although I can't seem to make it not transient anymore. But so that kind of makes a lot of sense to me. So kind of like different pieces, I think it'll be interesting to see how they can and will and be leveraged for legitimately different form factors, even within the large category of large screens. But yeah, I think those would be interesting, and I think the problem will always be whether people actually make use of them. But
that's a big question mark, right? Just because Google creates all these things, are people actually using them to the point? And I think to get back to what you were saying, Flo, to the point where Google doesn't just like get bored with it and decide, oh well, throw it to the curb.
Yeah. You can lead a bunch of devs to an SDK or API, but you can't make them dev.
Yeah, that's how the saying goes. Yeah, I've heard that one before.
That's totally, I know, ancient wisdom. Yes, that's how that goes. But I mean, that's unfortunately the Android.
That's right. Cool. Well, that's excellent detective work, Michelle. Thank you for running through some of that stuff. Of course, people should go to esper.io to check out Michelle's write-up about QPR1, all of the changes, the hidden changes that Michelle uncovered there. And then, Michelle, you've done a little tweet storm, but also you posted on the Android subreddit a summary of everything you found with QPR2 Beta 1. So if you want a more exhaustive, of which there is a lot more that we did not talk about, go check out those sources. Michelle is very active in all those places, so check it out for yourself. Let's take a quick break, and then we will get into some hardware news. We've got definitely some new hardware to talk about, none of which you're probably going to get very easily here in the US, but still, it's a good window into what we can probably expect as we head into this new year as far as premium, flagship phone specs and stuff. So we'll talk about that in a second. But first, this episode of All About Android is brought to you by Collide. The challenge with device security has always been that it's difficult to scale. The bigger you are, of course, the more edge cases you introduce, and the easier it is for significant issues to escape your notice. When remote work took over just a couple of years ago, that challenge got exponentially more difficult. It got harder. So whether you're a fast-growing startup that needs to graduate from managing device inventory in Google Sheets, or an enterprise trying to speed up service desk issues, you need visibility into your fleet of devices in order to meet security goals and keep everything running smoothly. But then again, how do you achieve that visibility when your design team, they're using Macs and your accounting team is on Windows and your most talented developers, of course, they're on Linux. You get Collide. That's what you do. Collide is an endpoint security solution that gives IT teams a single dashboard. That's one dashboard for all devices, regardless of whatever operating system they happen to be using. Collide can answer questions MDMs can't. Questions like, do you have production data being stored on devices? Are all of your developers' SSH keys encrypted? And a whole host of other data points that you'd have to write a custom shell script in order to learn about. And so when you really think about it, if a Linux vulnerability is exposed tomorrow, how are you going to figure out how many machines are at risk if that happens? File a ticket with the team that manages your MDM. You wait days to get a report back. Or maybe you send a mass email and you hope the Linux users are opening it, so you can understand why Collide is so powerful. With Collide, you have real-time access to your fleet's data. And instead of installing intrusive agents or locking down devices, Collide takes a user-focused approach that communicates security recommendations to your employees directly on Slack. You can answer every question you have about your fleet without intruding on your workforce. And if you want to check out how, visit collide.com/AAA. If you follow that link, they're going to hook you up with a goodie bag. That includes a t-shirt, by the way. And you get that just for activating a free trial. Pretty awesome stuff. That's KOLIDE, collide.com/AAA. And we thank them for their support of All About Android and for all the goodies in the goodie bag. Check it out for yourself. All right, let's get into some hardware news right now. All right, we got a slew of normal and then pro matched model phones coming at you here in this hardware block, starting with Xiaomi. Xiaomi announced the Xiaomi 13 and 13 Pro. These are its latest flagships, its flagship series. And like I said before the break, it's kind of a glimpse into what we can expect as we look forward into 2023. What are the kinds of specs? What's underneath that devices are going to be running? And we already know, Qualcomm has this so buttoned up at this point. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, 4-nanometer process happening inside. So this is going to be a pretty darn fast phone, as are, and most of the flagships this next year that are using the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 until they come out with the Gen 2 Plus. But anyways. If you get the Pro model here, the display does the wraparound thing. So if you like your flat displays, which I've been digging the flat displays a little bit more these days, even though this Pixel 7 Pro that I have has a little bit of a curve. The case kind of helps on that. But if you like your flat display, you're going to want to go with the Reg. Both have 120 hertz displays, so you've got that fast refresh. They've got the faster UFS 4.0 storage inside, and then the Pro has a 50 megapixel camera, among others, but just to point out, this one has a Type 1-inch sensor, which is larger than what you get in most phones. So yeah, I imagine that, I would be pretty excited to see what kind of photo capabilities these phones have. I remember like 4 years ago, let's say, and earlier, camera hardware was so important to me to call out when we were talking about new phones. Now, good cameras are like so much more a given in these things that it takes something like a 1-inch sensor for me to really kind of go, okay, that's different. That's interesting. The Pro also has a 4820 milliamp hour battery with 120 watt charging. And that sounds like a lot, but wait until the next phone we talk about, because that's even more. But still, 120 watts is fast. That's like a laptop charger. So I imagine this thing, charging it up from nothing to full is, no time flat if you're wired. And prices, of course, this is only releasing in China for now, global eventually. But prices start at 49.99 yuan, which is around 720 US if you did the conversion for the Pro, and then $570 if you did the conversion for the Xiaomi 13. So, and then I should also mention running MIUI 14. That's based on Android 13, some optimizations, some architecture tweaks, but the design approach, according to this article at notebookcheck.net, is very similar to what we saw before. So there we go. Xiaomi devices. Again, anytime we talk about Xiaomi, I think I point out the fact that like early on, many years ago, I got a Xiaomi device and I was super impressed by it. At this point, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but I was just so impressed by the build quality. Even if the UI and all the elements inside were in a language I didn't understand, like the design elements of it were really impressive. And because we don't have Xiaomi devices really here in the US and, they're not being sold here, lack of support, it's a little disappointing because I appreciate what they do from a design perspective and the fact that they're able to kind of keep those costs comparatively low, when you match them up to a lot of the other flagships in the market. But Michelle, do you get a lot of experience, a lot of time with Xiaomi devices? Have you in the past?
Do I have a lot of personal experience with Xiaomi devices?
Yeah.
No. I mean, when I was at XDA, like Xiaomi was the hot thing to cover.
Yes.
Like people loved it.
And that's kind of why I asked that question, because I know
time reading.
Right. But
about Xiaomi phones.
But Xiaomi wasn't sending XDA devices.
They were, just not me, because
Just
I'm
not
in the
you.
US.
Okay, yeah, I gotcha. Okay. Well, we can appreciate it from afar then, I suppose.
I did have experience with the Xiaomi 12 Pro this year.
Oh, okay. And okay.
So
Nice.
I try to get my hands on at least one model per year.
Good.
Just
And
to
so what do you
see what's going on over there? And they've been kind of courting US media a little bit more, I think, just because there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Oh, no question. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, that's right. Okay, you were on back in April, and you kind of gave a review on this, so I completely forgot about that.
The camera is really good. The camera hardware is really nice. I actually, of the phones this year, I liked the camera hardware a little bit more than Samsung, the baseline GS22. Mm-hmm. But they don't sell it here, so I can't really make it. I can't really tell people about it or say, I'm not going to tell you
best phone of the year.
No, I can't. That's
wouldn't work here in the U.S. Yeah. But still pretty darn impressive design, and and they just kind of keep doing it. Keep putting out designs that at least I'm only seeing these things online, and every time I do, I'm like, that's a pretty phone.
It is. They are pretty phones. I will say the phones that I see overseas are very pretty.
Yeah. Yep. So that's the Xiaomi 13 and the 13 Pro. But when you've got one that actually, as I was kind of putting this show together, and Michelle, thank you for some of the recommendations on these stories. I was noticing there's a lot of spec overlap between these two devices, except the
I'm having deja vu. I was listening to you, I was having deja vu.
I was like, that's here.
Of the specs.
But is it iQOO?
iQOO.
iQOO or iQOO?
That's what I've heard.
I don't know what it is, but anyways. Make your best guess.
I heard it say iQOO.
Okay.
Kind of like haiku, but iQOO. Yeah. I was calling it the iQOO 00 which
iQOO.
Not right. Yeah. No, I don't think that's right at all. I'm going to call iQOO.
iQOO.
iQOO. Yeah. So iQOO is a subsidiary of Chinese manufacturer Vivo, and they also have announced new flagship devices, and their flagship devices are the iQOO 11 and 11 Pro. So we got a normal / vanilla version and a Pro version. And this phone also is going to be rocking the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. And there's a lot of things that are also quite similar. The phones themselves are not too, I think a lot of the specs are very comparable. So it's not like, I say vanilla, but it's not really fair to let's call it the normal edition. It is a very attractive phone. And I think, just like the Xiaomi, this is a very, very attractive looking phone. Both of them have this kind of, very clean, modern look. I always love camera bumps. I think camera bumps are I love just seeing the different flavors of camera bumps. And this is actually quite attractive. I actually watched a, YouTube review of this, and the camera bump actually looks way sexier in person. I know that sounds weird to say, but just the lines and just the reflective material, it's beautiful. I mean, I don't think the renders and photos cover it. But yeah, you notice especially this white one is pretty striking. It's got this red. So there's a kind of colorway.
Stripe.
Yeah, the racing stripe. This might be the limited edition or the legend edition where it's white with this vertical red, black, and blue stripe. So I guess apparently this is reminiscent of BMWM's like motorsport kind of colors. So if you want a phone that feels racery, that is the iQOO might be something you're interested in. And what's super interesting is kind of just like the Pixel 7, just like the Xiaomi's that Jason just talked about, the Pro version has a more curved screen, whereas the vanilla normal version, I'll call it normal. Wait, what's better? We'll call it vanilla. Vanilla's a great flavor.
Yeah,
Vanilla's a fantastic flavor.
Not the bad of vanilla.
It's got a little less going on than other flavors.
Yeah.
So the vanilla version actually has a flatter screen, and that's kind of interesting that kind of particular design decision keeps coming up, that the curved screen is nominally premium for some reason. I mean, I'm kind of with everybody. I kind of like a flatter screen, but yeah, the iQOO 11 has a slightly flatter screen, where the iQOO 11 Pro kind of goes for that premium curved. What's actually extra interesting about the iQOO 11 Pro Legend Edition, or is that, sorry, there's a Legend Edition.
Yeah, I think the Legend is the one with the stripe. I think
with the stripe, yeah. So the regular version has a glass back, kind of similar to most phones that we're used to. The Legend Edition has a combination fiberglass and vegan leather material, like backing, which feels very nice apparently, and is stain resistant, which is kind of really important with a white phone.
No kidding.
So that's kind of new and interesting and sexy. I mean, like, I know some of my favorite phones are the ones that have like really interesting back materials. I mean, glass is great, but I think we talked about one Chinese manufactured phone that had like seaweed derived material, all this kind of stuff. So it's always nice to see people playing around.
It's a living organic phone in your pocket. What could possibly go wrong?
It's this one's stain resistant though, so you don't have to worry.
Yeah.
In terms of RAM, it comes in 8, 12, and 16 gigabyte flavors. It also has UFS 4.0 for your speedy storage reads and writes. And they're both quite large. They're both a 6.78 inch screen, 1440 by 3200 resolution, Samsung E6 AMOLED screen that goes all the way up to 144 hertz, 1 billion colors, and HDR10 plus support. And okay, so this is definitely like, if you are looking at the phone and it feels like racery and fast just by looking at it, this definitely feels like it has some gamery aspects in it as well, because with that, super awesome Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, I believe some people, someone can confirm, like, heating, especially with these kind of faster processors, is always kind of an issue, and some people report it. Well, in the iQOO 11, you've got hold on, I got to read this properly. You've got a vapor chamber liquid cooling system, which has a 4,013 millimeter square stamped stainless steel chamber with 3 graphite layers. So if you're just someone who just is really into mobile gaming and wants to be spending hours playing Genshin Impact or something, you got liquid cooling like in a phone.
And not just mobile gaming, also any live streaming. If you're doing a live stream or you're watching somebody who is live streaming, that also kind of eats up.
Absolutely.
That makes your phone really hot, and also charging.
Mining cryptocurrency, if people still do that. No, probably not doing that with your phone. But yeah, that's a really good point. Live streaming. I hadn't thought about that. Liquid cooling in a phone. I love it. It sounds gamery. And just to wrap up, they've got an excellent camera, 15 megapixel main camera. The iQOO 11 Pro has an extra, where did it go? 8 megapixel ultra wide, and both have kind of a 15 megapixel portrait or 13 megapixel portrait camera. Now, Jason hinted at this, and this is really awesome. So the Pro has a 4,700 milliamp battery, which is fine, but in terms of charging, it has a 200 watt charge. Like it does 200 watt charging. That's insane. Maybe that's why you need all that cooling. Yes, right. That's a really good point too, actually.
Oh my goodness. And not to be outdone, the vanilla is still a very reasonable flavor at 5,000 milliamp battery and 120 watt charging. So it's still fast. And
so it's at least on par with the 13 Pro's 120 watt charging. 200 watt charging. That's where we're at with phones. That's kind of ridiculous.
So they're competing with Oppo's SuperVOOC then, which is inside the OnePlus 10T.
And what was that? What's the speed of that one?
That was 120 watt charging. And they also have like this cooling situation where you have to buy a certain case to support the maximum cooling, or excuse me, the
150
maximum
watt.
charging capacity.
Seriously, my
150
goodness.
watt, not
Thank you,
120. 150 watt in the Supervoke
Oh.
Endurance Edition related to the 10T. Well, I mean, that ante just keeps getting raised, doesn't it? Now
Yep.
we're up to
and
200.
50 watt wireless also for the Pro. I'm sorry. So
Okay,
if
50
you just
watts.
want-
That's a respectable
The
wireless
battery wars
speed.
are real. The
Yeah, no
battery
kidding.
wars are real.
because we've given up on the fact that, like, I think to a certain degree, it's like we've given up on the fact that a phone can be all these things and a battery can last for 24 hours.
Right.
It's like, okay, that's not going to happen. So how about we just make your phone charge ridiculously fast and then,
Which
only
I
inconveniences
think-
you for 10 minutes or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, exactly. Which I
Yeah.
actually think that might work out for us, especially if we got this like aerial charging situation where you could put an aerial charging station in your home. So
Yeah.
the minute you walk into your home, your stuff starts charging via magnets.
So do you. Well, my body temperature went up 5 degrees, but it's okay because my
Magnets.
phone doesn't have to sit on a puck to charge.
How do they work?
Oh boy, is this the future that we're heading towards? I just don't know.
Yes.
I just don't know if it's
Just-
worth it. I'm fine charging my phone, plugging in. Like I still plug in my phone at home. Like even though I have the 7 Pro and it's a wireless charging,
I'm
and
not.
I have a wireless
I
charging.
miss,
But, yeah,
I miss the OnePlus charging, the speed.
the speed.
Yeah, versus the Pixel 7 and even like the Samsung device I miss the OnePlus's like proprietary thing it has going on.
Yeah, yeah.
I cheat because I'm deving all day. My phone is plugged into my computer.
Yeah,
so
right, right.
It's,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
cheating.
yeah.
But that's cheating.
Yeah. Hey, every use case matters, and every. I mean, because
Who
I'm
needs
in
fast
front of.
charging.
Yeah, I'm in front of. A
You see,
computer, too.
Win is DM, debug mode.
I am constantly, just forever. Just yeah.
Michelle, I can't remember if we've asked you this already, but are you a stalwart of the wireless thing, or like where do you stand on that?
I mean, if it's nice when my phone has it. My current phone, the Zenfone 9, doesn't support wireless charging, so I don't use it right now. But I don't really care either way.
Yeah, that's the same for me. It's like one of those features that, like, oh, okay, when I think about it, I
you're
throw it on,
patient
whatever.
people.
but-
You're patient people.
yeah,
Like Jason, especially you. Okay, but some of us are not.
yeah,
Some of us are-
okay. Understood. Well, iQOO is how I'll pronounce
iQOO.
it going forward, because I think,
iQOO.
yeah, that's probably the best way to pronounce that.
Yeah.
Or if I
And
had
unfortunately,
one on it.
we won't be getting it here in the U.S. anytime soon. I don't think it is available today in Indonesia and Malaysia. Available in Thailand on December 15th, and pre-order on December 21st in China. And if you're just kind of curious, or if you're in these countries and want to know, the Pro model is flagship price. So I think if you want to look at at the low end, it's $718 US. It's 5,000 yuan, which is about 718 USD for the 8 gigabyte. Sorry, the 8. Wait, sorry, my notes are all messed up. For the lowest end Pro model, and then it can go all the way up to 6,000 yuan, which is 861 USD as of today, for the kind of like most spec'd out model. So flagship phone, but super interesting, super sexy, all kinds of neat, interesting stuff. So
And
if you
racing
can get one,
stripes.
get one. Racing stripes, that makes it charge faster. I bet.
Yeah.
the
Oh,
racing
yeah.
stripes
Totally.
Make it charge faster. That's just how that works. That's
When it's
physics.
charging, it's so fast, it's invisible. The phone just disappears.
Okay,
That's how
Lightning
fast.
McQueen.
All right, and then finally, why don't we go over to Flo for the last story here, which is kind of bringing it a little bit closer to home, I would say.
Well, remember I told you all that Google gave me, I was very surprised, $250 for my Pixel 3 as a trade-in for the Pixel 7 that I bought.
Yeah.
Apparently that was short-lived.
Oh,
Because
you mean
it
good
turns
prices,
out-
like good trade-in values, don't last forever?
Yeah, but really the problem is you didn't believe in Google enough to just hand over your phone and get the maximum amount of money they would have given you for your old phone at that point. And I do see this as a very interesting experiment. So 9 to 5 Google actually kind of started curating some data and just sort of looking at like what people's trade-in prices were, and they came up with like a pretty nice thorough list that I would say is on par with like what I was saying when I was playing around with the drop-down menu. So it says here like the Pixel 3 was getting around $247 around the October 7th mark, which is when the Pixel 7 was announced. Well, now if you're trying to trade in that old phone, you know, it's time for your holiday upgrade, you're trying to cash in on the sales, that Pixel 3 would have only netted me maybe $40.
Wow, big difference.
That's just sad. Look at those. Look at the ratio of those numbers. That is.
I know. What a difference a couple
Pro.
of weeks makes.
Look at the 6 Pro, only $190 if you're looking to trade it in right now.
But it was worth $480.
That seems more on par with what I'm used to seeing trade-in values through the Google Store being. The trade-in values that Google's been doing the last couple of months have been like crazy good. So many people saying like, I traded in my phone and I only had to pay like $25 to get my brand new phone. You know, it's like, okay, wow, that's a trade-in. So this kind of brings it more down to earth. It's just one of those situations where it's like, well, if you missed the boat, I'm sorry, but apparently you missed the boat.
But I think this is smart for Google's bottom line.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is how you get a lot of people to go, well, I got to get in that old phone. I don't want to keep it around. I mean, nobody's going to buy it off of me. It's very hard to kind of recoup the cost.
Yeah, although I wonder if this is a regular thing and next holiday season, Google has similar increase. Like we're talking about you get 20%, if not less, of what you got a month ago if you trade in right now. I wonder if you hold on to that for another year and you trade it in next year, you end up getting more.
$25.01.
Yeah, that 1 cent makes all the difference, though.
That's like, what the hell?
How specific? Yeah, that's.
I wonder if that has to do with like a recycling, because I think at that point they're just recycling the hardware for you.
Yeah, right. They're not reselling.
And so I'm very
the
curious
Pixel.
if they have to pay out like a certain amount or whatever. But I
would still buy another. I would buy a Pixel 3 XL if I could get one for $50
for $49.
I've tried because it's a bigger screen than my.
You would
6A.
still but Burke, you know how to do things to a phone if you need to. Like I would never.
There's a reason why my 3XL has a crack in it. Actually, a piece missing.
Yeah. See, Burke does things to his phones.
Are they good things or are they bad things?
I don't know. That sounded kind of bad.
We're going to find out. There's this whole TikTok account of Burke just like working on phones in,
and it'll
basement.
Just be, it'll be at Burke does things to phones. That'll be your ID and it'll be your identity going forward.
Well, somebody has been a source of a couple of my phones. That I bought actually.
Boom.
Remember when I
Calls
used to
out
be in the
on
studio?
show. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Times they have changed. Well, I'm sorry, everyone out there, if you missed your golden opportunity to get $480 for your Pixel 6 Pro or $775 for your Galaxy S22 Ultra. But you're probably not trading in one of those like only a year old phones. I guess maybe you are if you want to stay up to date. But anyways, you're now getting a fraction of that. And that's just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Don't you believe it?
I want to have just like a last word here and say that the Galaxy S22 Ultra is a completely different device from whatever the 7 and 7 Pro are. Like we have to really start looking at these phones for the category of person that they are meant for.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, I hope you didn't trade in an S22 Ultra for.
That's kind of what I'm. Yeah.
They were expensive.
Yeah.
To start with, which means you spent a lot of money this year.
Yes, indeed. You know the thing.
We're in inflation,
there's something about people that I've learned partially through my own experiences that people sometimes make bad decisions when it comes to money.
Oh, honey, not just money. Not just money.
People just make bad decisions in general, money included. So
especially love. Ask J-Lo.
I will the next time I see her.
Can you stop talking about me while I'm here? This just, being called out for all my mistakes. It hurts,
Sorry.
I'm calling myself out, but
We'll move on. How about that? We'll save you. We'll save you. Let's take a quick break. Thank the sponsor of this episode, and then we will get into some app news. Only 2/3 of which is sponsored by Michal Rahman and his detective work, which makes up approximately 3/4 of this show. So thank you again for that, Michal. But first, this episode of All About Android is brought to you by Code Comments, an original podcast from Red Hat. When you're working on a project, let's say if you're a developer out there, this might ring a bell, and you leave behind a small reminder in the code, a code comment for someone like Michal to discover later, or to help others learn from your work. That other could be Michal. See? It all ties in together so perfectly. This podcast, Code Comments by Red Hat, takes that idea by letting you listen in on two experienced technologists as they describe their building process. As you know, there's a lot of work that's required to bring a project from the whiteboard, from that kind of brainstorm session into development. And none of us can do it alone. The host, Burr Sutter, is a Red Hatter and lifelong developer advocate, as well as a community organizer. And every week, Burr sits down with experienced technologists from across the industry to trade stories, to talk about what they've learned from their experiences. In fact, the first episode, Burr talks with David Duncan at Amazon Web Services. And it really illustrates what it means to work within this open source playground while also working with partners, and development is underway, throughout. So really interesting stuff. You definitely want to check it out. And any new episodes upcoming. Episodes are actually available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Of course, you can check your podcatcher of choice. You can also go to redhat.com/code comments podcast, and you can check out there as well. Search for Code Comments in your podcast player. We will also include a link in our show notes, so you can find that. And our big thanks to Code Comments for their support of All About Android. Thank you so much. Okay, and without further ado, it's time for some app news. Let's do it.
The future is coming, y'all. The future is arriving.
The future is here-ish.
Here-ish.
Yeah.
Here-ish. It's here in Chrome.
It's here light. The future is here, L-I-T-E, light.
It's the future's preview. I don't know. Never mind. I should have just left you.
Yeah, now I think we beat that horse to death.
Poor thing.
Nay.
So we're going to talk about Passkeys, and we're going to talk about Chrome. And we've talked about Passkeys a bit in the past as part of the Fast Identity Online Alliance, the FIDO Alliance, which is creating a new authentication technology and flow that is hopefully going to replace passwords, because passwords suck. They're just cumbersome. They're hard to remember. We have this entire category of software that helps us deal with the fact that passwords are just difficult for us to use, and also just for security in general. So we have talked about Passkeys before, which are a much better alternative because they are basically mathematically and securely generated cryptographic key pairs. And when you want to, authenticate, rather than giving, a website the name of your dog or your birthday or just the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you give them this kind of very, sophisticatedly generated number, and they have their own, version of this number, which is key. Those two keys are linked, and that's it. You don't have to remember, anything. You don't have to, necessarily generate yourself, unique paths for everything. Just the system generates it for you, and it's incredibly secure. And now with Passkeys, you can access them via Chrome. So Chrome is actually going to be supporting Passkeys. Now, this is not, of course, every website. It's only for services that are supporting Passkeys right now, which is through the WebAuthn API. But it's just the future is here. And if you really are curious about what the future might look like, and you're not already using iCloud with Passkeys, because they've had Passkeys for a while, if you want to know what that future might look like on Android, you can do that through Chrome. So the way this works is that through the Google Password Manager, the Google Password Manager will do a lot of the work of kind of generating these very, highly secure cryptographic keys, not cheese. keys.
Cryptographic cheese.
Cryptographic cheese. I love a nice Gouda. And managing them for you, as well as syncing them across devices. Now, you still have to authenticate yourself. So if you are using Chrome on Android, what's going to happen is, as you try to kind of authenticate to yourself to a service using passkeys, rather than, again, you typing in your password out of your memory or using your favorite password manager, it is just going to ask you to authenticate in a way that is not unfamiliar to when you unlock your phone. So it could be biometrics, whatever. And by authenticating through Google Password Manager, it will do the work of exercising your key and authenticating you through the service. You can also use this through the desktop as well, via QR code or Bluetooth, but it still actually ends up using an Android device that you have nearby, because kind of being nearby a registered device or, kind of some kind of other authenticated device is part of this this protocol. So basically, if you are on Chrome and you want to authenticate, it will actually direct you to a nearby Android device and you authenticate yourself through there. So this is a kind of glance into the future and what authentication might look like. If you are using Chrome, you can actually, and you want to manage your passwords, or passkeys rather, not passwords, passkeys. Chrome version M108 has a settings screen that is very reminiscent of the password screen that you have now with Google Password Manager. On future versions of Android, you will be able to use your, whatever kind of like syncing service, a central authority of your choice. But for now, you can take it for a spin with Google Password Manager. So, passkeys, they come in. Right now, they're just in Chrome, but this is just the start of hopefully better security for us all.
So, I just want to step in a little bit, because I actually spent an hour talking to like two of the passkey guys on the other podcast that I do, and the video that Burke showed on screen like a few moments ago, showing you authenticating yourself, from your Android phone to a Windows PC. So that it's not something like, I don't know if that was made clear when was talking, but you don't have to do that every single time. So that passkey, the private key that's generated when you create a passkey on your phone, that's stored on your phone. But when you do what this process is showing, this bootstrapping process, Chrome on Windows will actually say, hey, we've recognized this site. Do you want to create and store a passkey here? And so you'll have two different passkeys, one stored on Android, synced with Google Password Manager that can sync on all your Android devices. And then you'll have a second passkey stored on your Windows PC that's synced through Windows Hello. So these passkeys are actually like per device. And what the Google Password Manager can do is it can back up and sync those throughout your Android devices. And, they use end-to-end encryption for syncing your private keys. So it's not like once you lose your phone, you lose all your passkeys forever. No, like once you sign into your Google account on a new phone, you can use various ways to authenticate yourself and then re-download those private keys and reuse your passkeys on a new Android phone. But if you're going like cross-device, that's using like a separate process, which, as Burke showed that in that video example, is using the QR
code. Okay.
Yeah. And that doesn't have to be done every time. You can do that temporarily, but then after you do it once, you can be prompted to generate a passkey for that device. And then from then on, that device will just use its own passkey to sign in.
And at that point, the sign-in process is it really just like a one tap, like click here to sign in, passkey exchange?
It's just classing like, do you want to use this passkey?
Man, that sounds
and that's
nice.
It. Yeah.
It sounds really nice. I suppose the challenge is that, we're waiting for support to build up. And so we're going to be stuck in this like medium zone where, at some point there will be some passkeys, but there's also going to be passwords like. For the next few years, there's going to be most sites are going to use passwords as backup. And yeah, if you wanted to try it, like there's a few passkeys.dev, passkeys.io, like some websites. I know Best Buy has implemented it. And PayPal, at least if you're using Safari on iOS, you can generate a passkey through on PayPal. But they haven't rolled out support for like Chrome on Android or other platforms yet. Right. So are you optimistic then, Michelle, as far as what we're seeing here, as this passkeys being a solid like replacement for passwords? I mean, we could all complain and have probably many times about passwords being the bane of our existence. But we've learned to adapt to it as best as we can, but it still has issues. Do you like what you see with passkeys? Do you think this is the right approach?
Oh, absolutely. Like getting rid of passwords is definitely like I mean, you probably have family members who still take passwords or write down their passwords on like a notepad. I mean,
Oh
I
my
do.
goodness.
And
Yes.
like I definitely like I can't convince them to use password managers. It's impossible. Like it's just too much for them.
Yeah.
So
Technically, the notepad is safer.
Right,
than
because
storing
it's
them
air gaps,
digitally.
right?
it is, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, yes.
Oh man,
But,
but you're preaching to the
better-
choir as far as I'm concerned, because I was just in Boise a couple of months ago, and my mom hands me her password, not sheet, her stapled passwords sheets.
Yeah.
And I mean, on multiple different pages, it's like, Apple on the front page, and then Apple on the back, and then Apple over here. And so then it was like, okay, well, which one's the right Apple? Oh, this is for
It's the
something. It
version
was like-
history.
I had
It's your mom's version history.
but not only that, it was like, but that's for the Apple such and such, and this is for the Apple such and such, So it was like figuring out and cracking the code. It was just, it was
I think
painful.
one of the best parts about Passkeys is how user friendly it is. Like,
Yeah,
you don't
it
have to
sounds
know
like it.
anything at all about it. Like, sure, passwords are intuitive and easy to understand, but like to make use of like the best practices for securing your passwords, right? You have to use like a password generator, like 20 different characters, random strings. Oh, but then you also got to use like a second layer or the third layer, or use like a Titan M key. You got to do like apply so many bandages on top of the wound that's a password. Whereas Passkeys is like, we're just gonna rip off all those bandages. We're gonna stitch the wound from the beginning and like replace passwords with passkeys.
Yeah.
That's a great allegory, by the way.
Look forward to Passkeys coming soon to an Android
Oh.
near you via Chrome.
Actually, Scooter X mentioned, posted in the chat that 1Password has announced that passkeys are coming to 1Password. And if you look through, they actually have an interactive demo of what it will look like in 1Password. So if you're still just confused and just curious, and you happen to use 1Password like I do, you can check out their post and just maybe see what your future will look like. And I think it sounds like it will be rolling out in early 2023. So shoot.
That's right
Future
around
is
the
coming.
corner. Yeah.
Right around the corner. There you go. And you get to try it out for now, for free. Not for free, but for fun.
Yeah. The
Authenticate
future's
for
coming.
fun.
Future's very bright. You got to wear shades. That's all I know. Flo, you got the next one.
I've got the next one, but really, I'm
Yeah.
just rolling out the carpet for Michelle's information and for informing us of the fact that YouTube and YouTube Music are starting to roll out support for the new output switcher feature in Android 13, which is going to be very helpful.
How?
That's it. It's just going to be helpful.
That's it.
I mean, as you can
That's it.
see
It's going to be helpful.
in the screenshot, there's a Chromecast, Google Nest Mini, Google TV. Those are all cast devices. Previously, if you were to like play something in YouTube Music and you were to pull down the status bar and hit like the output button, where it says like phone speaker, before you'd only see the phone speaker and maybe a pair of Bluetooth earbuds. But now, as rolling out, you're able to pick between cast devices in that output switcher.
look at that.
So now it's much faster to switch between, say, like you're moving to your bedroom and you want to switch output from your living room speaker to your bedroom speaker, right? You just turn on your phone, hit the little button, switch it to the thing without having to open the app. So it's a lot faster.
Wow.
So much faster. And it reminds me, by the way, of the built-in casting feature on the Chrome browser. I always like the way that I could, like, if I'm playing a music page, that I could just go into like the casting option, and then I can pick exactly where to cast my tab. I'm glad we finally have it on the phone now.
Kind of feel, yeah, this is one of those things. It's like, okay, why wasn't that there from the beginning? I suppose you got to start somewhere, but
There's a
Michelle,
really,
do you know?
it sounds
yes,
like he
there's an
does.
interesting. I mean, I kind of know. I have some of my suspicions. Like
Yeah.
the article
Right.
that I wrote predating this, rollout. So like the output switcher itself, the feature where you tap the little button on the media player, that was originally added in Android 11. So, over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So then, like, why are they now letting you show cast devices? Well, the truth is, there actually was a period where app developers could add support for showing cast devices, but then mysteriously that stopped working. Like, even though app developers implemented the right SDK, they, enabled the right features, it just stopped working all of a sudden. And
Was
I
it?
think the timing
Sorry.
kind of if were you gonna bring up the word Sonos? If you were,
Yes.
maybe
Yes.
that's it. Yes.
Go, keep
so the
going,
timing
Michelle.
kind of lines up with the Sonos lawsuit, but there's no official
that's
confirmation,
right.
You know, like the timing of when it disappeared kind of lines up, but
I
who knows?
forgot about that. You're right. That makes a lot of sense, right?
And Michelle, I feel so validated when you and I are on the same.
Not only are you on the same row in this 4-shot, but you're on the same page as well. That's pretty awesome.
That did, by the way, mess up casting for people. It messed up casting in my smart home. It was annoying for a while.
And then now Google had to go back to the drawing board and figure out a different way to do it, right? Because Sonos kind of
didn't violate
the way that
patents.
yeah. And so here we are. You know, what's old is new again, once again in this episode of All About Android. And then finally, I'm not even going to set this up for you because you do a better job than I would do, Michelle. But tell us a little bit about Nearby Share and Windows 10.
It's kind of this app that I've been following for a bit. It's actually an app called Nearby Sharing Windows 10 11 on Google Play. So not to be confused with Nearby Share, the feature on Android phones that's available on all Android devices, like you share between share files and link between devices. This is referencing the Nearby Sharing feature that's available on Windows. So on Windows PCs, you have a Nearby Sharing feature. And on Android phones, you have a Nearby Share feature.
Oh, boy.
So although they have very similar names, they both under the hood use Bluetooth and Wi-Fi Direct to transfer files or initiate connections. They are both different protocols, so they're both incompatible with another. So if you were to use Nearby Sharing on your Windows PC, you wouldn't be able to send files to your Android phone because it only has Nearby Share by Google. So what this app does, it's an Android app that actually implements Windows's Nearby Sharing feature. And so you're able to send files and links to and from your Android phone and your Windows PC. The benefit is because it's using Windows's protocol, you don't have to install anything at all on your Windows PC to send files and links to and from your device. You do have to install this app on your Android phone because, as I mentioned, Android phones only have Google's Nearby Share, not Windows's Nearby Sharing. And so, yeah, it's a little confusing. And, Google did announce they are bringing their Nearby Share feature to Windows PCs. But as I just mentioned, their Nearby Share is different than Microsoft's Nearby Sharing. So when Google rolls out their feature, you'll probably have to install some kind of software on your Windows PC because, it's not built into the Windows OS. Or maybe it will be if they come up with some, partnership with Microsoft, but I doubt that. They already said they're working with various PC laptop makers or PC makers to integrate their service. So probably you'll see Dell or whatever partners Google announced back at CES. Oh gosh, that was CES 2022, 12 months ago.
Yeah,
what happened to this feature, Google?
Yes,
Where's
right.
the feature?
Oh my goodness. Sometimes sometimes it takes them a couple of years, and then sometimes they quietly give up on it. Fence removal. Anyways. Interesting. Nearby Sharing Windows 10/11 is the hot title of this app. So go check it out if that sounds
That's totally like a Microsoft app name.
Oh, and just to be clear, before anyone tries this app, if you want to enable the receiving functionality, that is you want to send something from your Windows PC to your Android phone, you do have to install the beta version of the app.
Okay. All right. Check it out. Nearby Sharing Windows
so
10/11.
it's nearby sharing or nearby sharing sending files only to Windows 10 or 11. Not receiving.
On the stable version of the app, but you
On the
can
stable,
receive
but
it
on the beta.
on the beta
Tomorrow.
version.
I'm sorry, receive, not send.
And the beta is a window into the future, so one can imagine that at some point the regular will have that functionality too. So there you go. Cool. Thank you. I know people who follow this show love to get app recommendations, so that's one of them. And then we have our trusty app recommendation from J.R. Rayfield from Android Intelligence, who sent us this video on a wallpaper tool that actually, finally, I've heard of one of the apps that he brings into this section. So let's check it out.
Hey, all right, so with the end of the year in sight, I thought it'd be a nice time to set aside all pretenses of productivity and to think about something purely superficial, purely fun, something we can all appreciate, wallpapers. I don't know about you, I've never been a really big wallpaper guy up until pretty recently. Set it and forget it has kind of always been my mantra in that department. But over these past several months, I've stumbled onto a few really cool tools that let you do some pretty interesting stuff with your phone's wallpaper. And now, as we're facing down the end of this year, I thought it'd be a perfect time to share them with you. So to kick things off today is one of my all-time favorite Android wallpaper tools, an awesome little gem called Tapet, T-A-P-E-T, Tapet, or Tape, if you prefer the French approach. Totally your call. Tapet actually generates completely new original images locally on your phone every time you open it. It's got all sorts of different patterns, palettes, and options. You can see an endless array of new wallpapers just by swiping up or down on its screen. And you can cycle through different color possibilities for any wallpaper you're viewing too by swiping sideways. Pretty neat, right? The app also has some really cool options in its setting area, things that'll let you have your wallpaper turn to a darker hue during the evening hours, for instance, or have one or more sides of the wallpaper darker than the rest to really make certain parts of your home screen pop. And if you're lucky enough to have a phone with Google's Android 12 and up dynamic theming system, it's especially awesome because everything on and around your home screen and even inside a lot of your apps will adjust itself automatically to match whatever wallpaper you're using at any given moment. So you end up with a whole system-wide theme kind of thing. And speaking of change, you can also set Tapet up to refresh your wallpaper automatically at any interval you want. It's a really, refreshing way to keep your phone feeling constantly new and personalized, especially if you've got that dynamic theming stuff in place. Tapet's free to use with an optional $8 premium upgrade that gives you a whole bunch of extra designs, pattern possibilities, other advanced options. But even if you don't go that route, it's a lot of fun and fully functional to use, even in that free form. Oh, and it doesn't require any permissions or really any manner of data access at all, so you've got nothing to fret about on the privacy front. We'll drop a link into the show notes for you. And remember, you can get tons of top-notch Android tips like this in your inbox every single week with my Android Intelligence newsletter. It gives you 3 things to know and 3 things to try every Friday. You can sign up for free right now at androidintel.net/twit. That site again is androidintel.net/twit. We'll pick up here with another fun wallpaper tool next week, one that might just be my favorite find for all of 2022. Back to you, team.
Oh, that means we have to wait until next week to figure out what that is. But Tapet, I know that I've used Tapet in the past. I would not forget that name. It's a great choice. I love the kind of like the dynamic creation of wallpapers. Although as JR was kind of walking through this, it was kind of reminding me of like, wait a minute, AI is coming along and generating 100 avatars for us at the click of a mouse, and they're all kind of interesting and different and varied. And is that going to happen to our wallpapers soon? Like somebody's got to be working on some sort of
but you can already do that.
Stable Diffusion infused wallpaper app. Did that exist already? It must.
Well, I mean, the AI, whatever it's spitting out is high res. So
yeah, that's true. It's kind of already. I mean, what would you get out of a Stable Diffusion version of this? I don't know. It probably wouldn't work because it's not humans.
Surprised. You'd be surprised. My husband has a couple of those AI generated wallpapers that he's made himself.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm surprised at how nice it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, a friend, how did they phrase it? They phrased it like, I'm going to a crappy art party. This is the kind of party that people have. I think it's amazing. And he actually used Stable Diffusion to generate some really nice landscapes. They were kind of dreamy, kind of special. It almost looked like holidays in D&D Venice or something. I can't even explain it. It was just a very nice. So I kind of like that. Although I guess if you were in the pre-show, you heard us kind of opine on that. So I'm going to stick with Tape, and I'm going to call it Tape because it sounds fancy.
Tape. There's no accent, so it's really.
I would like
to say Target.
Yeah, Target. Yes.
Target. Yes.
What, Berg? What's up?
So, artists, very good artists, try really hard and they make beautiful, beautiful landscapes, much better than AI ones. And we should support them.
Okay.
Burke is correct.
And I just actually
is
bought
correct.
some art today. 3 pieces of art that were human generated. And they're being sent to me.
Good job.
I do still buy human generated art, but if, classroom projects, joke website, crappy art party. Exactly. That's when you would go the more affordable route and have the AI.
I need to ask more details. Saying it saying it out loud. I'm just like, I need to ask my friend about that.
I'm like, what?
No, but to be fair, I'm not gonna criticize or judge or anything. But no,
crappy art's easy to find. That's all I gotta say.
Well, and hey, doesn't it make you feel better that my friend took well, I don't know if it makes you feel better, but
Yes,
there is a commentary on that they took.
The whole point was a social commentary on how, art that is stolen is crappy. Right.
It's usually free too.
Oh boy.
It's
Well,
not
the
free
AI
online.
is
It's
using-
It's not that free.
Yeah. AI is infused with actual people. Anyway,
AI is
all about
made of
ethics
people.
of AI.
I'm sorry I brought it
AI
up.
is
Before we head down the AI generated landscape, rabbit hole.
Wait, we already did though.
Before you head even further down the
We're
rabbit
not
hole.
deep in the hole. We're in the first level where
We're at the top of the iceberg right now.
We
it
are.
goes really far.
Just give us a couple of years. We'll be deep, so deep we can't even see the top anymore. That's where we're headed as far as all this is concerned. Anyways,
nice knowing you guys.
most of that had
Well, we
nothing
were
to
all
do with
human.
Tape. JR, still, thank you for your recommendation.
Thank you, JR.
And we'll be waiting for Tape's as of yet unannounced new upcoming feature that has something to do with Stable Diffusion. Okay, let's take a break, thank the sponsor, and then we will get to your feedback, of which we've got a few, and they're really good. So hold up and sit back and enjoy as we talk about our sponsor, IT Pro TV. Actually, IT Pro TV is now IT Pro from ACI Learning. That's right. Your IT team needs the skills and knowledge to ensure your business is a success. And with IT Pro, more than 80% of users who start a video actually finish it. That's because it's good. Their content is so solid. IT Pro is engaging, and your team's going to enjoy learning on their platform. Give your team the tools they need to make your business thrive. Courses are entertaining, they're binge-worthy, keeping your team interested and vested in learning, which just makes them better at what they do for you. The tech industry is evolving, changing rapidly, and your team needs to be trained today. When a new software releases, or you've got a system upgrade, or there's a cyber threat that faces your business, well, IT Pro offers the training and perspectives of those disruptions within days, if not hours. So why is IT Pro actually right for your business? Well, you get all training and certifications for your team done all in one place. You don't have to go to a million different sites or, video platforms or whatever. It's all there. IT Pro has every vendor and skill you need for your IT team training. And they provide Microsoft IT training. They provide Cisco training, Linux training, Apple training, security, cloud. And this is just kind of scratching the surface. So much more than 6,800 hours worth, ranging from technical skills to compliance to soft skills. And you can do so much with an IT Pro business plan as well. You can track your team's results, so you can manage those seats. You can unassign or assign team members. You can access monthly usage reports, see metrics like things like logins, who's logging in, when are they logging in, how much time are they viewing, the tracks that they've completed, and so much more. You can easily manage your teams. So, maybe it's subsets of users or teams, all by providing them with customized assignments, monitoring progress, and reporting on usage of the platform. Those assignments can be full courses. They can also be individual episodes within courses. And then you get advanced reporting. So you get immediate insight into your team's viewing patterns, progress over any period of time with those visual reports. It makes it really easy to understand. Don't forget that IT Pro has individual plans too. We've been talking a lot about the business plans here, but if you're just an individual, you can get a plan as well. IT Pro from ACI Learning, give your team the IT development platform they need to level up their skills while enjoying the journey. IT Pro is so awesome at that. Go to itpro.tv/allaboutandroid today. Check it out for yourself. You will not be sorry that you did. And we thank IT Pro and ACI Learning for their support of All About Android. All right, feedback time, AAA@twit.tv. And we'll start with you when you've got the first one.
Yeah, so this is, I think, one of my favorite pieces of feedback ever, because I think what is awesome is that the Android faithful care not about just the Android ecosystem, but also the well-being and health of the All About Android crew. And this first feedback is from Scott, who writes this saying, "Hi, folks. While listening to your discussion of the snore detection in the Pixel Drop, I got increasingly concerned with the amount of snoring some of you were describing. If you are snoring so much that either your bed partner or your other bed partner, your phone, are remarking about it often, please see your doctor for evaluation of sleep apnea. If diagnosed and treated, you and your bed partners will sleep much better and you may live longer. Android phones can save lives too. Thanks for the great show every week. I want to keep them coming."
Thank you, Scott.
So, thank you, Scott. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was one of the snorers that Scott is talking about. I believe that it was Ron was one of the other snorers. And yeah, I snore sometimes. I have actually, not, whether you want to hear this or not, I have actually done a sleep study. And and this was probably like 6-ish years ago, 6, maybe 7 years ago. And they had determined that I had like a light kind of sleep apnea going on. And so I like slept with a CPAP for a while. I did not like the CPAP. Let me tell you, it was not fun, but I was able to kind of like train myself to, well, at least I was, maybe not now, but at the time I was able to, because they give you this like chin strap thing that kind of keeps your chin closed while you sleep, which is way more comfortable than the actual CPAP. And I was able to, according to my wife, train myself so that I could keep my mouth closed while I was sleeping so I wasn't snoring. But I think maybe that's shifted, so I probably need to do a sleep study again. So thank you, Scott, for caring enough to share that, because it's a good reminder. And yeah, I don't want a CPAP though. I don't want to sleep with a CPAP. CPAPs suck.
Yeah, they do.
But
They do.
Dying also sucks. So there's that.
I just want to say, Scott, I didn't find out that I was snoring until I shared a bed with my best friend, and she woke up the next day and was like, "Did you know you snore?" Mm-hmm. I'm like, "No."
A lot or a little? After. Yeah, a lot or a little. I guess would be my. Does it matter? Like if I'm like that kind of a snorer, does it matter?
Well,
versus my mom is a. I just called her out on the show. Oh no, why did I do that?
Oh my gosh.
It's just what came to mind, okay? Apparently it runs in the family. That's sorry, Mom. I know she doesn't watch this show, and I know none of you know who my mom is, so I only feel sort of bad about
snores
that.
Like they're literally, you think they're dying. Like it's like their last breath. It's horrifying.
Right, because sometimes, and I will admit, my wife has said I do this sometimes where you're sleeping and you're snoring and she's like waiting for the next breath to be taken, and there it is. And yeah, she's expressed concern about that. So yeah.
Sorry, was the sleep study hard to do? Because I'm trying to get his. Was the sleep study a pain to do or difficult? Because I have suggested this to my husband, and I'm not going to remark anymore on that because I know he sometimes watches this show.
Yeah.
Love you, baby.
Was it hard to do? I mean, God, it was at this point, it was a while ago. Actually, was it when I lived in San Francisco? So it was probably more than 11 years ago.
I think it just takes some time.
Yeah, I mean, you
have to sleep a little bit.
I just had to, I set it up. I'm sure I did that through my doctor at the time. And then I went in there at like 10:30 and they kind of wired me up, and I was in a very sterile, weird room, and it was like, okay, go to sleep. And, it was 10:30 and I was, tired because it was night-ish, but it was still weird to fall asleep. And then they woke me up at like 4:30 and it was done. So it was actually kind of not a fun evening as far as that's concerned, but I mean, it was instructive. It was informative,
Well, everybody, I hope you'll be happy to know I did not snore very much while I was on vacation. So,
wonder what that means. I snore. Wow, we were so off topic.
I know it's all about snoring.
Yeah, I snore if I drink. Like last week, was it Thursday? We had kind of like a holiday gathering at a restaurant, and let's just say a lot of us tied on a buzz. I took a lift. I took a lift there, so I knew.
You're all in Sonoma County. You're all in wine country. It's understandable.
Yeah. Hey, we had a really great time. It was a wonderful little holiday gathering. I took a lift there, so I knew what I was getting myself into. And sure enough, that next day, I woke up and my wife had moved out of the bed because I was so loud. She's like, I'm just going into another room. So I know that happens when I
Jason, that's like
drink.
college.
But I don't drink very often. So
it's like,
yeah, I know. I'm making excuses right now, right? Like I need to just go get my sleep evaluated again. You're right. Fine. I feel so called out.
But that is the point that Scott was trying to make is that this kind of these kind of features integrated into your operating system can help you just like start thinking about things.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, Jason, you have to be shamed to get a sleep study.
I mean, but I'm not ashamed of it. I snore. There's not a whole lot I can do about that.
No, I'm not saying saying you're not ashamed of it. I'm publicly
No,
shamed.
I'm just human and it happens. Thank you for attempting to bring this back on topic, Flo. Back to technology. I love that. And thank you, Scott. I really do appreciate you writing in with your concerns. Thank you. All right, Flo, you got the next one.
This one comes from Ben from Baltimore, and I think y'all have snow over there right now, so I feel like it's cold right now. I'm sorry, Ben, that I brought that up if you are cold right now. Ben writes in, I was surprised on this week's previous episode he is referring to, you didn't mention Google's new reading mode app. I first heard about it from friend of the show, J.R. Raphael, last week, the day it was released. What it does is use the accessibility tools in Android to provide a system-wide reading mode that you can quickly open on any article you're reading, regardless of the app you're using. You could trigger it with a gesture or button press. The other really cool feature is it has dictation. I've been using it for about a week, and I love it. And Ben is bringing up, the reading mode, which I will say I've been waiting for this reading mode because Safari on iOS has a reading mode that kind of like simplifies, is very similar to the simplified view that exists in Chrome for mobile browsers. It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice and easy.
Nice and easy. That's my style.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Very good. Accessibility focused app. Google's doing, I think Google's doing really great things when it comes to accessibility. And you've been on, you were talking in pre-show, Flo, about your time on iOS this year and, spending more time with an iPhone than you have in previous years. Because you've
ever.
Been ever.
In my life.
And then I also know that in past years on this show, you've been really interested in kind of accessibility functionality of devices. Did you spend much time with accessibility on iOS in a way to kind of get a sense of comparing like what's possible between the two? Like, are they on par, or are there major differances? And maybe you don't.
I have not spent a lot of time looking at that just quite yet. I am a little, annoyed is not the right word. I don't even know if miffed is the right word, but I just want to caution that when we talk about accessibility features, that the way that they're marketed can be in a very like, look at us, we're saving you kind of way. Just to put it bluntly. But I want us to start looking at accessibility features more as just like, these are features that make technology accessible to a vast variety of people. Because at the end of the day, like, that's what it is. Mm-hmm. I I think there were actually some accessibility features that came out with iOS 16.2 today, if I recall correctly. I got a lot of things going on in my mind. And I was just sort of thinking about like, this is great, but this is probably going to like apply to everybody who can make use of it, really.
Right,
in the day. So
high tide lifts all boats.
Custom accessibility mode.
And like the simplified text in the Chrome web browser on mobile, like I was using that because I like to read at night. And let's say, you know, I do like to read on the fold, but sometimes if you go to a website that's white, even the lowest brightness setting on that AMOLED will like shine through and bother me. So I prefer to read, you know, dark black web pages because it keeps me in like the rhythm of night reading.
Yeah, me too.
And so I like when I saw that they were doing this, I was like, oh, thank God. Now I can just like do night reading when I'm on a basic, you know, I'm reading celebrity trash, but let me read it.
No judgment.
Like simplified.
No shame. No shame. Very cool. Awesome. Well, thanks,
Ben from Baltimore.
Yes, Ben from Baltimore. Thank you for sending that in. And now we have the email of the week. Sent in from none other than Roger in Arizona, who says, I will make the argument that the OS update policy from Samsung et al., which is 4 years OS, 5 years security, is necessary to keep it on par with Google's update policy, which is 3 years OS, 5 years security. That's because the other manufacturers release phones during the year with the then current OS. Google releases its Pixel phones coincident with the release of the newest version of the OS. So let's look at an example. The Samsung Galaxy S22 phones, they released February 2022 with Android 12. That end of support hits February 2027 with Android 16. Google 7 and 7 Pro released later in the year, October 2022 with Android 13. End of support, October 2027. Yes, Android 16. So same version. And that's just when you put it that way, Roger, and maybe it's easier to visualize. If you watch the video version, you can kind of see the comparisons and see how they start differently, right? Because the Pixels announced later in the year when the new version of Android happens. The S22, for example, is like January, February, March, somewhere around there. I can't remember when it came. Oh, yeah, it was February. But they end up terminating about the same time. So I suppose that's one way to look at it. Roger continues saying, now, if we can just get any of the Android tablet manufacturers to commit to anything, it would be great. Amazon doesn't get enough props for their continual update to their Android-ish tablets. Until then, I'll keep using my Chrome OS tablet. So I don't know if this is the reason why Google has a shorter OS update kind of commitment, but it certainly kind of seems to line up similarly, I suppose, to Samsung. But we had kind of a little bit of a debate with Juan Bagnell last week on the show. And
did you?
Well, yeah, we were talking about OS updates, and I think my kind of approach going in was, Google needs to walk the walk. If others, other competitors are offering more, which OnePlus is and Samsung is, when you're talking about major OS updates, I feel like Google needs to at least be on par with them. Just to kind of.
They?
Well, and that was Juan's argument, right?
With the Pixel that they're trying to sell and make money for Google with? Because the hardware division has to make money, and the best way to do that is by offering something. Sorry, I know you guys all already had this conversation, but
yeah, and so that's what this is in response to.
But that's why, like, I do agree with Roger that this is actually the same update cycle between Google and Samsung. So like what Samsung and also OnePlus committed to the same update cycle, what they're offering is really the same thing as Google. It just sounds better because they really need to sound better than a Google phone right now.
The release timing is just different, but I don't know.
Yeah.
You got a burning opinion, Michelle, on this topic? Does Google, you be the definitive, does Google need to equal, if not surpass, anyone else in Android in their update commitments?
I do think they do. I think, like, I've heard that argument before that Samsung, it ends up being about the same because Samsung releases their phone 8 months earlier. Well, it's a whole 8 months you get to experience the previous version of the OS, and then it gets an upgrade, and then it ends up on the same version of the OS after 4 years for Samsung or 3 years on Pixel. But that's still 8 months of like a extra period for Samsung.
Yeah,
that's a whole major OS update like time period, if you think about it. But yeah, I do think Google needs to lead the way, like, because like they're not just an OEM in the form of Pixel, they're also like the makers of Android. So a lot of the decisions and a lot of the things they decide to do for Pixel end up having ramifications for the rest of the ecosystem. So like whenever they decide, it's time to maybe kill this feature off in Android, it might affect other devices that are trying to update from older versions down the line. They try to do generally like the way they build Android and support Android. It's like, we're going to support a certain platform for like 3 years. And then after that, you're pretty much on your own when it comes to updatability and like making sure you can meet the requirements. So like, that's actually like an official program. They call that the Google Requirements Freeze Program. Like they support OS updates like for like N+4 generations. So like you're starting, N+3. So like you're starting OS and then 3-letter upgrades afterwards. But then after that, you got to do a lot of work on your own as an OEM to bring your device past the 3rd letter upgrade. So that Samsung's actually doing a lot of work to be able to promise that 4 generations of OS update support. It's not like trivial for them to do. Like, but yeah, I think Google really needs to raise the bar across the board.
That's my feeling. But I met some opposition last week, and apparently Flo opposes as well.
What? No, I was gonna say we need to like 2023. We really need to watch out what's gonna happen to the pipeline for us because there's a lot. The tech industry is getting chopped up right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Because of everything going on in the economy, and I'm being extremely serious right now. I'm not trying to just like fearmonger here. I'm very curious.
There's a lot of
there's a lot of
shifting happening right now for sure.
Yes, and with everything going on at Google and how they're like trying to make money for their shareholders, which of course is just like how all these things work. It's going to be very interesting to see, what the lineup is like next year.
Yeah,
because I would rather have like a stable operating system than what we've been having with like the Pixel. Like they gave us the Pixel 7 and they said, okay, all these new features are coming, but like most of them that we're advertising in the commercials won't be available for 3 months. And then we just, had a Pixel drop like recently that we were waiting for a while. So I'm
deliver
concerned.
on your promises, Google.
Yeah.
Among other things.
2023.
Thank you for writing in, Roger. And
you got us talking.
Yeah. You can tell all of your friends that you were the email of the week. And then play them that little horn so they know it's real.
Or just hum it.
Yes, that works too. We've reached the end of this episode, and holy cow, it is late. I'm not going to keep y'all any longer. We got a late start on this, so I apologize once again to everyone watching live. Of course, if you're getting the podcast, you have no idea what I'm even talking about, but still, I'm sorry. Michelle, what do you want to leave people with?
Well, if you want to follow me and find out what's new on Android, and I'm sure you do, you're listening to All About Android, follow me at Twitter at Michelle Ramon or Mastodon at Michelle Ramon at androiddev.social. But also, check out the company I work for, Esper.io, if you're interested in, managing Android devices. You're looking for like an MDM solution for Android devices or something more.
Yes, indeed. And like I was saying earlier, very prolific. So if you follow Michelle in any of these places, he's going to keep you busy, and that's why he's awesome. So thank you, Michelle. Really appreciate and love having you as part of this rotation on this show. So thank you for your time. Flo, what do you want to leave people with?
Well, you can check out my writing over at gizmodo.com, or if you need to find specifically my bylines, you can go to flowwrites.tech, type that in to your address bar, and it will take you directly to my author page at gizmodo.com. I'm also a podcaster, of course, that's why I'm here, but I do have a podcast that I do every week with Andy Anatko over on the Relay FM network. It is called Material, and we talk all about Google, so do check that out. And if you want more of like an inside scoop into like what I'm playing with, or, 90210 screen caps or whatever, I have a bustling Discord community that you can join by going to florenceion.com and looking for the link.
Right on. Well, thank you, Flo. It's been fun hanging out with you. I guess both you and Mishal, we will see again in the new year, bringing you back in January, although you will see more of them in the best of that's coming up here in a couple of weeks.
Oh, yay.
So look for that as well. But thank you both. And then, Wynn, what do you want to leave people with?
I am, in fact, an Android dev. That is my day job. And I occasionally talk about Android things and Kotlin things. And you can find most of my content, talks, slides, and code on my website, randomlytyping.com. I'm often at Queen Code Monkey on things, in particular Instagram. Well, that's more me personal workout based and actually like Android stuff based. And for now, you can find me at Queen Code Monkey at mastodon.social. Yeah. Follow me there.
The Mastodon train. Right
The
on.
Mastodon.
All right. Thank you, Wynn. And we'll see you next week. We've got a pretty awesome episode. I'm not going to really spoil it, but we've got next week is an episode you definitely do not want to miss. We've got a special guest, and you will find out. But thank you to J.R. Rayfield, Android Intelligence, for always sharing his awesome picks each and every week. Thank you to Burke for holding it all together on a very challenging evening, a challenging technology day, I think, for Burke, but he made it happen. So thank you, Burke. Thank you, Victor, behind the scenes for writing horrible things for Burke to say during the news bumper, and also for editing the videos and all that kind of stuff. We couldn't do it without you. You can find me at Jason Howell on Twitter, though I'm not really tweeting very much other than an occasional tweet storm like I had this morning. I was kind of in a mood. But you can also find me at Mastodon, at Jason Howell, or twit.social / at Jason Howell is probably the place to go there. Don't forget, Club Twit is our subscription tier. If you love your Twit content and you want it without ads, well, that's what Club Twit is all about. So you get that. You also get exclusive Twit Plus podcast feed content, shows that aren't available outside of the club. And then members only Discord, all for $7 a month. You could pay for the full year for $84 if you like. Twit.tv / Club Twit for that. As for this show, all you got to do is go to twit.tv / AAA. That's a show page on the web where you can find all the ways to subscribe to this show. We do it every Tuesday evening, and so it usually appears in the feed late Tuesday, early Wednesday. And if you're subscribed, you won't miss it. So we hope that you'll do that, and we hope that we will see you next time on All About Android. Bye, everybody. There we go.
Ciao.
Hey there, I'm Micah Sargent. Look, as a geek myself, I feel it's only fair if I admit something. We can be kind of hard to shop for. So what do you get for that geek in your life who has everything already? Well, a Club Twit gift subscription, of course. Twit podcasts keep them informed and entertained with the most relevant tech news podcasts available. With a Club Twit subscription, they're going to get access to all of our podcasts ad-free, exclusive outtakes, behind the scenes and special content, and I love this, exclusive shows like my own Hands on Mac and Hands on Windows from Paul Thurrott, as well as the Untitled Linux Show. So purchase your geek's gift at twit.tv / clubtwit, and they will thank you every day.
Android.